Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be going over Delfino Maza 2023, and due to a handful of DQs, this tournament is going to be losing its S tier stats, but still sitting at an A plus here with a bunch of top talent from both in and out of region coming in. So let's get right into it. For our top 16 seeds, you got Jazzar, Rox, Andres FN, and Chag in 13th, MK Big Boss, Waka, Alendis, and Shiny Mark in 9th, and 7th, you're going to have Siski and Skyjay. 5th, Ken and Gackt. 4th, Meister. 3rd, Glutonny. 2nd, MK Leo. And then seed to win the entire thing is Spargo. So let's just get right into the top 32, starting off with our first matchup of Spargo versus Chag. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one because a lot of external factors are going to be coming in here. You obviously have Spargo with his only underperformance when he's been a super notable player. His only underperformance in the post-quarantine era at SmashCon didn't do super well there, so I'm going to have to see, is he able to bounce back from a poor event? Honestly, I expect him to, but he's also been probably dealing with a little bit of burnout. I mean, he went to Gommel, then he went to Smash Factory, then he went to SmashCon. Now he's going to this. I know that's why Sonic dropped out. He was experiencing a little bit of burnout. The same thing could be happening to Spargo, but even with all of that, he usually does beat Chag when they play, and I expect him to bounce back from SmashCon. I don't think that's going to be a repeated thing. I also think it's just less likely that's going to be a repeated thing because I can't imagine that Spargo is happy with that 49th placement. He definitely wants to get back to the top level as soon as he can, so I imagine he's been absolutely grinding, and I would expect him to take it over Chag. Then you have Siski versus MK Big Boss. So this one is a little bit interesting because even though on paper I favor Siski, in their last encounter, it is going to go to MK Big Boss, as well as their only time playing at the major level. And now MK Big Boss, he's on the home turf, and I'm going to say that he takes it again. Now, Siski also underperformed at SmashCon, so you're going to assume that he's also been grinding coming into this weekend hot. But even with all that knowledge, still going to favor MK Big Boss. But regardless of who gets there between Siski and MK Big Boss, if they get to Spargo, I would expect Spargo to beat both those players. He has the record overall. I just think he's better on the tier list as well, just from simply a ranking. I mean, he's a top 5 player in the world. Though Siski and MK Big Boss have been able to get some of those bigger wins. I mean, you have Siski beating players like Yoshidori. You have MK Big Boss beating players like Sonic this season. These guys are absolutely insane, and they can beat the best of the best, but in order to beat Spargo, you have to be able to beat, like, literally the best. Next up, you're going to have Meister versus Andres FN. Andres FN coming off a very good run at SmashCon, most notably, getting a reverse 3-0 over Shootown. Once you're able to beat a player of that caliber in that fashion, that kind of shows me that you can do pretty much anything. But even with that knowledge, I would definitely still favor Meister. I just think that Game Watch does very well versus all of the FGC characters, and unfortunately, that's going to be Andres FN's lineup. Now, it's not necessarily going to be a free win for Meister. As I just said, Andres FN can probably do anything in this game at this point. I mean, if you're able to beat Shootown in that fashion, that is just insanely impressive, but I am still going to favor Meister. Then you're going to have Ken versus Waka. Now, definitely going to favor Ken here, even though I don't know if he has the level of Luigi experience that Waka may have in the Sonic matchup, because it's very likely going to be Sonic versus Luigi. It could be Sephiroth Luigi, but Ken played all Sonic at SmashCon. He got top 5 of that tournament, so I imagine he is going to continue that trend. Now, as I was saying, don't know if Ken has as much Luigi experience as he might need. There are a couple of good Luigis in Japan, like Yamanoction, like Rariku, but that doesn't necessarily mean they played, and it also doesn't mean that they're on the level of Waka. Waka is obviously incredibly talented, but even with that, I would still favor Ken just because I think Sonic is probably going to beat Luigi. Then you're going to have Meister versus Ken. Now, I'm going to say that Ken wins this one because he's playing very well at SmashCon. He has the option for Sephiroth that he has never tried versus Meister. Now, as I said, he's been playing a lot more Sonic. I think only Sonic at SmashCon, so he probably won't even try it. And he has lost to Meister twice. Both sets are going to be 3-1. Now, does that mean he's going to lose to Meister the next time he plays him? Probably, but I'm going to say that this is the time that Ken is able to pull off the upset. He takes his momentum from SmashCon and gets himself a nice spot in winner's side top 8. Next up, you have MK Leo versus Rox. Now, these guys have only played once offline. It was at Frostbite, so it doesn't even really matter, but I would still favor Leo going into this one. It doesn't really matter which character he's playing for me because Leo has a very good Sheik, and I know that doesn't seem like a big deal. Rox's Sheik is definitely better, by the way. Like, Rox is a top 3 Sheik in the world, and Leo is probably not a top 3 Sheik in the world. Maybe it is, though. Maybe he's been absolutely cooking with that character, but he's going to know a lot of the combo routes. He's going to know a lot of the kill setups. I think that's really important against a character like Sheik. She can definitely get the damage on, but once it gets to the nitty-gritty, it's really difficult for that character to secure the kill, especially against a player like Leo who knows all of your options because he's been playing the character a lot. So not going to favor Rox there, even though he is an incredible player. You're going to have Alendis versus Skyjay as well. This is a very interesting one to me because these guys have played each other a lot. They are going back and forth. Of their more recent encounters, you're going to have Alendis winning 2 of them and then Skyjay winning 1 of them. This one was at the same tournament though, so it doesn't really matter. The only time they played at the major level is going to be at Delfino Maza Reda, actually the Invitational, and it is going to go to Alendis, and for that reason, I'm going to say that Alendis takes it. I mean, he looked phenomenal at Smash Factory, looked absolutely incredible at that event. So hopefully he's able to take that momentum into it and get that upset over Skyji. Then you're going to have Leo versus Alandis, and I would definitely expect MK Leo to take this one. Even though Paulo Kage was able to beat Leo at Summit, Leo is a player that I think does extremely well versus Snake. He's maybe not the best player in the world versus Snake, but I would still have him in that top 10, top 5 range. He's just very good at the matchup, as well as the character that he plays. Definitely having the tool to be able to deal with Snake. Now, isn't it possible that Alandis upsets MK Leo? I mean, he's beaten Zomba and Mutant. Again, he's beaten the players where you can beat pretty much anyone in the world at this point. So the answer is not necessarily no, but I would still favor Leo. And for our final top 8 qualifier, it's going to start off with Glutonny versus Jazzar. Now, I'm going to say that Glutonny takes this one, even though Dr. Mario Wario probably isn't even the worst draw you can get for Dr. Mario. Wario is going to be a character that has to hit him with similar boxing tools. You might even favor Doc in certain scenarios because he's got some really quick moves like his up air, like his back air that are definitely deadly. I definitely think that he can get the upset over Glutonny. I would way rather favor him over a player that could absolutely zone him out, like a player like Leo, like a player like Cant. I think out of all the top draws for him to get, Glutonny is probably the best one, but it is still Glutonny. Glutonny's still probably going to win it, even though he doesn't necessarily have any annoying projectiles that Doc can get it against, or some really annoying hitboxes that he can't deal with. He's still going to be much faster in the neutral. He's probably going to be able to camp him and get waffed super easily. So I'm going to say that Glutonny ends up taking that one. Then you're going to have Gackt versus Shiny Mark. Now, I am going to go with Gackt here. As much as it hurts my heart, I just think that Ness does extremely well versus Pikachu, as well as Gackt being very good recently. Now, he does underperform at SmashCon, which is something to note, but as I said earlier with Spargo and Siski, these are players of the caliber where underperformance at your latest event doesn't really mean anything to me. I will expect you to bounce back from it, and I honestly think that Gackt is going to be playing absolutely fine at this event, but even with Gackt playing fine, Shadow Mark definitely can still beat him, even though the matchup isn't amazing. Maybe Lucina comes out, though it feels like an offline event. Shadow Mark's going to be going pretty much only Pikachu because his character absolutely can pull it off. And Shadow Mark definitely can beat the best NES players in the world, but still, I'm going to favor Gackt, though, because the matchup is going to be good for him. Then you're going to have Glutonny versus Gackt, and this one's actually very interesting because they play each other a decent amount, and most of the time it goes into Gackt's favor. So I'm going to say that Gackt is able to take this one again, but Glutonny has also been looking phenomenal as of late. I mean, that bike tech that he's added to his repertoire has made him like 30 times better. It's actually so impressive how much more control he gets over the stage from his usage of bike, as well as some of the combo extensions he's able to get off it. So I think if Glutonny is going to be able to beat Gackt, it is going to be right here. But based off the matchup in the past, I'm going to go with Gackt. For anyone curious about the Gackt Glutonny record, it's going to be 2-0 in Gackt's favor. So they haven't played each other a ton, but all the times that they have played, it's gone to Gackt. There's a couple people in the losers bracket that I didn't mention that I do want to talk about, and that's going to be players like Goblin, Monty, T3 Dom, some of the more notable invaders that are coming to the event. Now, T3 Dom, interesting to me because he is still the best Belmont player in the world, even though he doesn't go to a ton of events. I would definitely still give him that title, and he could 100% shake up a bracket. Now, he's supposed to play Andres FN in the winner's side of bracket. Honestly, that is a very doable upset. And if he gets Meister, that's also a character that I could see him getting an upset on. Now, it is going to be very tough work, though, but T3 Dom, if there's any Belmont player to pull it off, it would 100% be him. You have Goblin, a player that could cause a lot of damage. He's supposed to go up against Chag, so I could definitely see him making that upset. Monty as well. I would expect him, if he's going to make a run, more in the loser side of bracket because he's got MK Leo very early on, and we all know Leo's record versus Meister, but they are different players, so maybe Monty's style of game watch throws Leo off. You also have a bunch of good Mexican players here that I didn't talk about. Most notably, I want to talk about Cloudy and Javi, two top talents in this game that just don't really get a chance to travel. I could definitely see Cloudy going on a run as well as getting an upset over Jazzar, but let's talk about our top 8 qualifiers. Now, I'd expect Shadowmark to beat both Cloudy and Jazzar, especially Jazzar, because it is going to be Dr. Mario versus Pikachu. And depending on who this is, if it's Ken or if it's Meister, which most likely is going to be, again, Andres Fed and Waka could sleep in. And honestly, I would expect Shadowmark to beat all these players except Meister. I think Meister is the one that he definitely does not want. Game & Watch does absolutely incredible versus Pikachu, one of the very few characters that just super bodies that character. So if you're Shadowmark, fingers crossed that you just don't go in a loser's bracket in general. But if you do lose to Gackt, you really are hoping that Meister is able to beat Ken. And to be fair, the paper says that Meister beats Ken every time. So if Ken does lose to Meister like he normally does, I would expect Shadowmark to get top 8. Next up is going to be Siski. Now, he's likely going to get Alandis, Rocks, or Skyjay. As I said earlier on, I think that Alandis is going to beat Skyjay, so we're going to talk about this like this is Skyjay. Regardless, though, I would expect Siski to beat all 3 of those players. I mean, he has a 1-0 record for Skyjay, so to be fair, they have only played once, but you also have Siski with a secondary Incineroar, so he knows the ins and outs of that character, and he's very likely not going to be having the fear that most players are going to be having. He also has a very positive record versus Meister, I believe, winning their last 4 encounters, and he's up 3-0 versus Apollo Kage, so all of those matchups, both on paper and in practice, he's going to be having success. And so I'm going to favor Siski to get into the top 8. Then you're going to have Glutonny in this part of the bracket, in my opinion, because again, I think that Gackt is going to be able to upset him in the winner's side. And regardless if it's Waka or Andres Afen, I would expect Glutonny to win both of those. He does only have a 1-1 record versus Luigi, but he is going to be winning their last encounter at King of Fields. And I do think that Luigi is the best Luigi in the world right now. Now, they are two very different players, so that doesn't necessarily mean that Glutonny is going to be able to deal with Waka's style Luigi, but I would still expect him to prevail in that matchup. And then for Andres Afen, the only time Andres Afen was able to beat Glutonny was going to be a Temple Hermes edition, I believe, which was a long time ago, and Glutonny has won it every single time since. So maybe, sorry, Mike cut out there, but I was just about to say that Andres Afen does have a very deep roster that he can pick from. He could definitely mix up Glutonny's tempo with that switch between Terry, Kazuya, Ryu, Ken, but even with all that knowledge, I would still expect Glutonny to take this set. And here we are, the top 8. We're just going to be going with the projected seeding because I just want to highlight everyone that's actually seeded to get top 8. I will say, though, the most important top 8 qualifier is this Glutonny one. I'll talk about that in just a sec. But first, you're going to have Spargo versus Meister, and I would favor Spargo to win that, not only in practice, but on paper. He does very well there. Both of his characters are going to be doing well versus Game Watch. The record is just heavily in his favor in the head-to-head, so I'm going to say Spargo takes that one. MKLeo versus Glutonny or Gackt or Shining Mark. Now, Jazar definitely has a chance to get in there, but Dr. Mario top 8 in the major is a crazy thing to predict, so we're not even going to talk about it, especially through the winner setup bracket. But to be fair, Jazar definitely could pull it off if anyone were to, but if Gackt makes it through, I would favor Leon. I think that's probably the most likely possibility. If Glutonny makes it through, I would favor Glutonny, and if Shining Mark makes it through, I would favor Shining Mark, only slightly for Shining Mark, though. Glutonny, though, which is who we're going to be talking about because that is the seeded one, I would heavily favor versus MKLeo. It has been a very long time since Leo has beaten Glutonny. Now, to be fair, all of those sets have been extremely close, very stressful, nail-biters, game 5s, most of them, but Glutonny has edged them out every single time. And the last time they played didn't even go to Game 5. Glutonny won that one pretty well, and I would expect him to be able to take it here. Now, MKLeo, obviously a player that doesn't like losing the same person over and over again. I'm sure he's been absolutely grinding this match. I'm very curious to see which character he brings into it, but until I see it, I'm going to favor Gluto. In the loser side, you're going to have Siski versus Ken. Now, I would expect Ken to go Sonic here because, as I said, SmashCon, he went pretty much all Sonic, and I just think Sonic is a better choice in general, so I just assume he's going to go it. But even if he goes Sonic or Sephiroth, I would expect Siski to take it. He won their last encounter where Ken ended up going both characters. Now, to be fair, it was a best-of-3 set, but still, he beat the Sephiroth, and he kind of owned the Sonic. He also has a 2-0 record versus Pele, so I'm going to say that Siski is able to take that. Then you're going to have SkyJ versus Gackt. Now, Gackt is probably very aware of how good SkyJ and Sonora is. He is a fellow content man. I'm sure he's seen many VODs of it, but playing it, especially in tournament for the first time, is something different. He is just so scary. Sorry, another mic issue there, but pretty much all I said is I think SkyJ is going to be Gackt because I believe that SkyJ is going to be able to overwhelm it because SkyJ is very, very scary. For losers quarters, you're going to have Siski versus Leo and Meister versus SkyJ. And for Siski Leo, I would definitely favor Leo there. I just think he does very well versus Samus, as well as having a 2-0 record versus Siski. I honestly think, though, if there's any point in the bracket where this top 4 players don't get into the top 4, it's going to be because Siski beats one of them. I think he's the player that is most likely to get an upset out of these players, but I would still expect Leo to win that one. And then for SkyJ versus Meister, I would definitely favor Meister, even though the only time they played at the major level, it did go to SkyJ's favor. Pretty much every other time it goes to Meister's favor. I mean, they have 2 different accounts for Meister beating SkyJ. That's how bad the record is. So I'm going to say that SkyJ loses that one. Then you're going to have Glutonny versus Meister, or rather Leo versus Meister. And we all know how that goes, like 99% of the time. Maybe the 1% of the time pulls through here, but I highly doubt it. And our top 3 is going to be as seeded, though. You're going to have Gluto in the winner's side versus Spargo, and Leo winning in the loser's finals. And honestly, I think the only thing that really matters here is this winner's finals, because I think all of these players can reset each other. I think Spargo can reset Leo and Glutonny. I think Leo can reset Gluto and Spargo. I think Gluto can reset Leo and Spargo. But I think it's going to be extremely difficult to win 2 sets in a row. And if I had to pick a player that I would favorite, I would favorite Spargo, because I expect him to be Glutonny. The only time they played in 2023, it did go to his favor, but to be fair, it was like right at the very start. So maybe Glutonny wins that set. I mean, they go back and forth historically. And then for MK Leo, the last encounter is going to go to Leo with the Joker reverse 3-0, but I imagine that Spargo has been absolutely grinding at matchup, and especially considering the fact that he will likely have 2 sets here, because as I said earlier, I think Glutonny is probably going to beat MKLeo earlier on in the bracket, and then I think Spargo is probably going to make it to the grand finals because I think he's going to beat Glutonny. I think the fact that he'll have 2 sets If Leo's even able to beat Glutonny in the losers finals, maybe Gluto just double eliminates Leo from the bracket. I could definitely see that happening. Regardless of how it occurs, though, whoever gets the slot in the grand finals to the winner's side is very likely to secure the event. I mean, you could say that about literally every event, but I think it matters especially right here because all these players are so close to each other, and having any little edge you can have is so monumentous. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry this video was a little bit more scuffed, and I just kind of talked a lot slower in general. I haven't recorded in a while, so we're just getting back into the swing of things. If there's any players that I missed at any point in this video, please just let me know down below. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Sports been absolutely unreal. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.